Welcome to Code Freedom. I'm your host, Eddie Bales. Have you ever felt stuck? Have you ever felt like there's got to be more than life than the reality that you see every day? Tune in weekly, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays as we crack the codes to freedom in every area of your life. Code Freedom listeners, Eddie Bales here. Excited about this episode 36. This will be the first interview that we do of many. And we have our good friend, a friend of my wife and I, Miss Kimberly Joy Morgan. And we're going to talk about health because health is wealth. And if you want to have freedom in your life, you got to have freedom in all areas. It can't just be one area. What good is it to gain the whole world but to lose your soul? What good is it to have the success and the finances, but not have the health to enjoy it? What good is it to have the health, but to have bad relationships? And we're going to talk about relationships shortly too. But today we're going to do a deep dive and hear from a health coach who is helping people in a big way when it comes to having optimal health and wellness. So stay tuned for episode 36 with Miss Kimberly Joy Morgan. All right, well, hey, welcome to episode 36 of Code Freedom. I'm your host, Eddie Bales, and super excited because we actually have our first guest on the show, and I'm so excited. I've been waiting all week for this. Well, really not all week. I've been waiting for a long time to be able to do this with her because I know how important health is in every aspect of being free in your life. And so let me just tell you about who she is. She is Yahweh's daughter. She's a wife, a mother, a sister, and friend who happens to be a published author, internationally certified IIN health coach with a specialty in gut health and microbiome reconstruction. She's also a professional union actress. She graduated from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where she had the highest honors in 1999. She is the founder and CEO of Do All Things with Joy, LLC. So Kimberly, she humbly uses her life to inspire people to see the benefit of healthy living so they have the energy to pursue their goals and approach life with passion and purpose. She's down to earth, inspirational, authentic, and she's a tell it like it is would be the words to describe her personality and approach to coaching. And you'll find that when you hear her in this interview. She loves to teach and deconstruct complicated topics, which I need her to do when it comes to health and wellness. And she also just loves life and just loves people. And so she does online courses, she does speaking events, she works with clients one-on-one, and she believes that everyone should understand where health and wellness meet passion and purpose. She's also an author of a book called Share the Joy, 52 weeks to abundant 52 weeks to abundant health. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and introduce Miss Kimberly Morgan.
Hey, how you doing?
Excellent, excellent. So, I heard years ago someone say this, and it just really stuck with me. He says, we dig our grave with our teeth. And I find that to be so true because, you see people who know that they shouldn't do this and they shouldn't do that, but they just keep eating the thing that they know they shouldn't do just because, they love it. And so, I want to kind of dig into that. I also find too, one of the reasons why that I wanted to have you here is because I find as entrepreneurs, most of our audience are entrepreneurs. And I find that we fall into this rut of I'm grinding, I'm hustling, I'm building, and I can put the health on the back seat. I'm traveling, I'm doing all these things and everything will kind of catch up or I'll get it right when I need to. But right now I'm just focused on this, right? I got my head down. And so, yes, it's good to have your head down, but you also, health is wealth. And so that's why it's so important that we talk about that today. So, let me start off by asking you, how did you find yourself in the health arena in terms of coaching like you're doing right now?
For me, it came out of an actual illness that I started getting into health and wellness. I will say, even from when I was young, I think in fourth grade, I wanted to be in the Army, not because I wanted to be a soldier and fight, but because I actually wanted to go through boot camp. I always, for some reason, have just really loved, fitness. And so much so that I worked with a bodybuilder when I was in high school and, was a dancer and cheerleader and all that kind of good stuff. So I never had an issue with that. Food, though, for me, wasn't something that I really paid attention to because I had what they call that fast metabolism, right? So I never had to think about it. And I kind of ate my way through sugar into teeth that were cavities and root canals. And one of my root canals failed, and I ended up having something called C. difficile that came from the antibiotic that they gave me, which is where it cleans out your good and your bad bacteria in your digestive system. Some people can die from C. difficile. It's not easy to recover from and to rebuild your digestive system. And they told me at age 30, I was going to have to be on medication for the rest of my life. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. That's not the way that I want to live. So I started seeking, answers and figuring out how can I do this naturally? Because at that time in 2007, there was not a lot of information. There wasn't all the gut-free and gluten-free and keto and everything that they have nowadays. So when I asked the doctor, what do I need to do? They were like, just eat some yogurt. And I was like, what do you mean? Like Yoplait yogurt? And it just, there wasn't information about, they did say get some acidophilus, and I didn't even know what acidophilus was. So I had to go to the health food store and say, okay, help me understand what I'm looking for. But then my husband's friend and a really great doctor named Dr. Clayton Gibson really started working with me and helping me understand what was going on in my digestive system. And so for that, I really started, just studying. And at that time, I guess by that time it was 2012, 2013, when I started posting my food on Instagram and Facebook. And friends and family were like, what are you eating and what are you doing? And that looks good. And it's healthy. And, that, so I got kind of get those questions. And as I did, I had remember it was a gentleman who I went to college with, and he was a lawyer. He's a lawyer. He still is a lawyer. He said, can you help me change my diet? And I was like, sure. And it wasn't like in business. I just was, doing what I was doing and what I loved. And that was how my business as a health coach started. But it came out of my own trying to heal my digestive system so that I could feel better, because most people don't realize that when your digestive system is messed up, your brain activity and your like depression, anxiety, it's all linked, because your microbiome is linked to your brain through the vagus nerve. And if your digestive system is out of whack, then usually your thought pattern is out of whack as well. So
Wow.
I wanted to get away from that without drugs.
Absolutely. I'm the same way. Like if I can avoid any medication, I would rather do that, because, and that's what we'll talk about in a second is, I don't think we were all, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not detesting any medicine, but
No,
I do
I'm not
believe
either.
our body is meant to heal itself. And
Yes.
Yahweh made our bodies to do what it's supposed to do without all those things a lot of times. But we'll talk about that. But I love what you said too, because this came out of your passion. And that's one of the things we talk about on this podcast a lot, is living life from your passions, because a lot of times we work jobs that we hate, instead of just living our passion and doing our passion, and your passion will actually make room for you. It'll basically give you opportunities to do the things you really want to do. So let me ask you, speaking of that, how would you connect health from the biblical perspective? Because I know the Bible says certain things about food, and sometimes we overlook those things because we say, oh, that's Old Testament and things like that. Not to get too theological here, but it's an important topic, because I believe that he designed us a certain way to live and to take food in a certain way. And if we follow those precepts, then we'll get better results. So that's another reason why I really wanted to have you on the show, is because you come from a biblical perspective, and that's important to me.
Yes, definitely. No, I believe that the Bible is our blueprint. I mean, it's all in there. And a lot of times people say, that's just as you mentioned, oh, that's Old Testament. Well, science can back up what was stated in Old Testament as why we should stay away from something. So in an example, I mean, like I said, you can even use the New Testament, and I actually teach a class called Eating by God's Design that walks you through pretty much all of the books of the Bible that talk about food and what's really being said. But when you think about pork, for instance, and people say, oh, I love, I always address that a lot of times, in shellfish, like I love my pork and I love my shellfish, and I say, okay, well, I understand it may taste good, and there was a time when I did eat it, but when I understand that swine were put on the earth to actually clean the earth. So they don't there, and then when you study an actual pig and its digestive system, it has a very short digestive system. So meaning it doesn't spend a lot of time processing through to be able to clean it to then come out as a like a clean waste. So what happens is those toxins will enter into the muscle of the pig. And what do we eat? We eat, like when we're eating flesh, we're eating muscle. So now you're taking in the toxins. And if you ever study a pig, it'll eat anything. And when I say anything, I mean anything. So that space of I'm ingesting something, and the same thing with a shrimp or crab, or they're meant to clean up. Like if you think about what do people usually, if you get a fish and you buy a fish tank for your house, a lot of times the pet store will say, buy a what? A catfish or shrimp and put it in there because it cleans all the bacteria. Once again, those toxins go into the muscle of that particular crustacean, was what we would want to call that. And it in turn, you're ingesting it. So now you're having to deal with toxins in your body that it was never meant to have to process. And so, that's just two things. So when the Bible is actually breaking down those foods that we should and shouldn't eat, it's based upon, how our bodies are meant to function and what we need to take in order for everything to run optimally. So I always try to tell people that, while things may taste good, and there might have been a time when out of necessity, especially in, the United States with slavery and what we were given to eat and to survive, there's a difference between survival and there's a difference between now I have an option and a choice. And so that's where I try to tell people, look at what the word says, and even not so much just the types of food, but how we're supposed to treat our body. I mean, our bodies are a temple for the Holy Spirit to live in. And if you would never just put, or what I say, play any kind of music in the temple. You would never, just have it messed up. If you thought, okay, God's coming to my house, what would you do to it? You would clean your house from top to bottom. You would, have the freshest air you could possibly have. You would, put on music that you would feel would be edifying to him walking through the door. You like all of those things matter. And so that's the stuff that we need to consciously think about when we're saying, I am the house of the Holy Spirit, this body, this vessel. Then why wouldn't I want to put the best food in, the best water, the best whatever, in order to present myself as a living sacrifice in that way?
Wow, that's so good. I recently just gave up pork myself, just
Hmm.
from learning and listening to some of the things that you share, and it was hard. I'll be honest, but when you,
Yeah.
you break it down like that, why wouldn't you? We
Mhm.
want to live in optimal health. We want to be here for a long time. I heard someone else say, "What's the point of living a long life if you're going to be sick for most of it?" Right?
Correct. Like, yeah.
And I find that to be true. Like people just kind of they're sick all the time, and sometimes it's just because of the lifestyle that we have, and we don't ever think to change it.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
this is a very important topic that we're talking about. So I'm so glad that we're talking about it here today. But let me ask you another question here. Us being an entrepreneurial community, what would you say to people who have a busy lifestyle and how they can maintain their health in terms of having a healthy lifestyle?
I think you have to approach your health just like you approach your business. And as you just said, if you don't have your health, then it's going to affect your business, is what I try to say. So for me, every person is different. Some individuals are really early risers. They love getting to the gym at that particular time. For me, as an entrepreneur as well, that's not my best time. Going to the gym at 5 a.m., you're not going to get the best out of me. So what I say for entrepreneurs, especially when you can create your own schedule, is there a difference between someone who works a 9 to 5 and has to get it in because they have to punch a clock. But we're speaking to entrepreneurs. You can dictate when you start your first meeting, when you do what you're doing. So you have to plan your wellness in. So just before this call, my optimal time to work out is 9 o'clock in the morning. I know that I get the kids off to school. I don't have to think about ending early. And so for me, from 9 to about 10:30, it's blocked in my schedule. I don't care about meetings. There are maybe a few times for an audition or something that I have to do, that you go in and you make an adjustment. But for the most part, if someone wants to find me from 9 to 10:30, they're going to find me at one of the two gyms that I belong to, or outside in my garage, depending upon how much time I have. And so you block that in. The same thing with eating. You have to make sure that okay, am I able, is my day flexible enough to be able to cook? If it's not, I need to prepare whatever it is that I need to do the night before, or do some, what I call batch cooking on a Saturday or a Sunday, depending upon, your time frame and what you can do. And if that fails, you need to hire someone. You need to allocate funds to bring in the types of food that you need to eat at the particular time that you need to. It just depends on, your level of, how busy you are, I should say, as to what you need to do to accommodate what that looks like in your life. But you have to plan it. You can't think that it's going to happen. Just the same way, if you're going to plan your calls to whomever you have to make, or creating your ebooks, or whatever you're doing as an entrepreneur, and you put that into your schedule, you have to make time for your health and wellness, or it's going to insert itself in a way that you're going to be sick, or going to the doctor, or taking medication. And that's not the way I want to spend my money. So, or
Yup.
time.
It's so funny because you're sharing a lot of ideas that we've talked about in other podcasts or episodes already. And one of
Hmm.
the things is planning. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And it's like in budgeting, you have to plan.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you'll wonder, where did your money go? In time, you have to plan, or you'll wonder, where did your time go? But also
Hmm.
in health, you have to plan, or you'll wonder, how did my health get like this? And it's all
Hmm.
because we didn't have a plan for it. So it's nice to know that we can adjust things and make it in a way where we can get better if we put those things into practice and put those things into play.
Yeah,
So
and I think for entrepreneurs, it's there's really, I don't want to say there's no excuse, but there really is no excuse. I find it harder for my husband, who has a certain time that he has to be at work, and within the parameters of when they expect him to be there. That, okay, he's got to really either wake up early, or he's got to do this after the day is over, and make that decision. But for myself and for other entrepreneurs, you decide when your first meeting is. You decide what your schedule looks like. And so I find that it's harder for me to make an excuse to say, well, I didn't have time to do that.
right, absolutely. So right.
Mhm.
Now, I've always wondered this, and maybe you can expound on this, but we know that there's genetics, and we know
Mhm.
that people, from diabetes to high blood pressure and all kind of other things that come from our genetics and our DNA and our background, our family. Are we doomed to what happened with our forefathers, or is there a way we can shift it in a way where we can go in the right direction? Because a lot of people tend to think that, oh, well, my mom had it, her mom had it, so this is just how it is, right?
Yeah, no, I don't. I actually don't believe in that. I believe that there's something called epigenetics, and what we eat turns genes on or off. So yes, we may have a propensity for a particular gene, but that doesn't mean that I have to turn that gene on. I can turn that gene off by eating certain foods. And so here's what I always say is that I don't necessarily believe as much as in the genetics. I believe in the habit of eating like your mom ate, and your mom ate like your grandmother ate, and your grandmother ate like your great grandmother ate. And so what happens is you perpetuate the turning on of certain genes based upon the fact that everybody ate fried chicken where I grew up, in pinto beans. Well, how about fried chicken and pinto beans may not have been the foods that turned off that particular gene, but if you were to switch your diet into eating a more, I'm just using it as an extreme example, a paleo diet where you take grains completely out, you don't have sugars, like, then the diabetes won't follow you, because you're not eating the things that trigger an insulin response. So while you may have a propensity, but you have more of a propensity to develop that just because your family ate a particular way, you learned that lifestyle and perpetuated it, and then you teach your children the same.
Man, so
So if, like I said, all genes are turned on or off by what we eat and our lifestyle habits. So if we really want to make a shift and a change, I mean, my dad had a heart attack, and there's heart disease in that side of his family. My aunt, his sister, had a heart issue as well. I don't see and claim that for myself, because I stopped eating red meat and pork when I was 16. I, definitely stopped eating shellfish, probably, I can't even remember. It was years and years and years ago. So things that increase my cholesterol, I work out differently, I eat totally differently. So I've never stepped in the doctor's office with high blood pressure. They had it. I've never had high cholesterol. In fact, the doctors always look at my cholesterol like, how in the world is it that good? So I don't see myself going in that genetic way. The only thing to me that I look at is that I understand that there's a connection between your teeth and your heart. So I'm studying how to, turn those things around, that could create issues with the heart. There are connections, but I don't think it will be because of what I ate, so to speak, if that makes sense.
Wow, I never heard that before, but you always drop a whole lot of knowledge I've never heard. So and I'm glad. I hope the listeners enjoy this because they'll learn so much as well. You know, when you talked about the like habits, and we've talked about that in other episodes too, is
Mhm.
that it's like we do things and don't even know why we do it because everyone else did it and we don't really know any other way. And there comes a point where we have to stop making those excuses and draw a line in the sand and say, hey, listen, I'm going to set some new habits for my family
Mhm.
because I
Mhm.
want my future generation to live a different lifestyle. So I love what you shared about that. And so just a couple more things I want to ask you is, you have clients and you work with a lot of people concerning health. Just give us some ideas of how you've helped some people uh, like shift their health because I remember I think my wife went and met with you and then she came home and started throwing out a bunch of food. What's happening here? But I'm always looking to get healthier, and so I was okay with that. But just tell us like some things how you've turned other people around in terms of what they've had to go through in terms of their health journey.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things as far as individuals that need to lose 100 pounds, right? Or their cholesterol numbers need to change. Their A1C numbers are high. I mean, a lot of it, I get a chance. Nothing that I do is cookie cutter. So I get a chance to really work with someone and find out what are your specific needs, what's happening, in your life. But I don't just think about food in the sense of what are you eating. I have a more holistic part of the way in which I approach it. I want to know how you're living your life. So, what's your career like? Are you happy in your career? What relationships do you have? Are you and your husband or wife fighting all the time? Are you having issues with your siblings? What's happening in your relationships? What's happening with your physical activity? Are you actually working out? Do you have something that you enjoy doing? It doesn't have to be working out like going to the gym like I do. It could be I enjoy gardening, or I have a hobby of, you know, writing poetry, and go like, as long as there's something that you physically engage in outside of, just work. And then it's also your spirituality. I say to people, what kind of connection do you have to a a power, a source? For me, it's the Most High Heavenly One, and Yeshua. So for me, that's my source. Other people have other sources, and but is there something higher than you that you connect with? And so when I find that there are, what I say, deficiencies in that nutrition, that primary food, then it shows up in their secondary food, which is the food they put in their mouth. And so working with people, I think I enjoy more helping them discover their passions and their purpose, and those four areas of their lives that they don't realize, oh, that's why I'm eating a bag of chips at night. My husband's traveling all the time. I'm lonely. And I pick something up to put in my mouth to fill that void. Or I cannot stand my job. So I'm constantly getting up, especially working here at home now with the pandemic. And I find myself going to the refrigerator every 15 minutes because I dislike what I'm doing. I tell people kids all the time have it right. They go outside, they play with their friends, they're in physical activity. Their career is learning and exploring and doing what they do, right? They are in relationships with their friends, playing and doing what they're doing. And there's a connection to the Most High in the sense that they are being authentically themselves, right? And that there's that connection. So guess what? You call them in for dinner, they're like, I'm not hungry, I don't want to come in. If we lived our lives like little kids do in that space of loving what we're doing, we would it would be very we don't eat a lot because we're engaged in things that are meaningful. So when you ask what are the things like that I see the most is, yes, I can help people analyze their food all day long, and I can help you understand the nuances of reading a label and, should I couple protein, fat, and carbs together and why and all of that. But my biggest piece is that I love when I see people's lifestyles shift and change, and that they either leave a job, start a new job, improve their relationship. That's what really satisfies me as a health coach, life coach, that because it's not just about the food. Because if I fix the food and we don't fix the outside problem, guess what? You're just going to use food as a drug over and over again. But when you start recognizing, when you start eating outside of the norm, I always say, ask yourself, what primary food am I not getting? And once you start analyzing that, then you start making lasting changes in the types of food that you put in for secondary.
Wow, that's so good because um, just like how I was talking about medicine, it's like I feel like medicine is like a band-aid for our health issues, and what you're
Hmm.
talking about is fixing it from the root,
Hmm.
and getting to the root of the problem. So I love that because that creates long-lasting change. So,
Yes.
well, last thing I'll ask you is, how do you feel that being healthy is a code that can unlock freedom in people's lives?
There's no pursuit of your passion and your purpose if you are laying in bed sick, tired. And I think about people such as um, Steve Jobs. I mean, as much as he was able to do and create, and with Apple, people liked him, didn't like him. I don't care about that, but he's not here anymore because of a health issue. And I'm not saying that food could have solved the problem. I don't know I don't know his inside and out, but I guarantee you, if he could go back and say, could I fix something by how I was either the stress level of my life, what I was eating, whatever, that opened a window or a door for cancer to ravage his body, I believe he would probably say, I'll pass on the other and keep this most of the time. Because what we don't understand is that if we are, like you said in the beginning, grinding so hard that all of a sudden now my body is in shutdown mode. And there are times where we can, what I say, get it back, right? You can reclaim your health, you can reverse, there can be a restoration of something that has happened. But there are also times where it's absolutely too late. And it speaks of that in the Bible, where there are moments where you have crossed the line and you can't regain your health the way that it was. You may be able to, know, eh, get to a place where you feel a little bit better. So I say, when the red flags go up, when certain things are happening, when your doctor says, "Oh, you're pre-diabetic," or "Oh, you're on the cusp of high blood pressure," that's when you really need to start making some serious lifestyle changes. And when you don't know, because I trust me, that's how I became a health coach, was because I was so tired of the doctors when I would call and say, "Well, what do I need to do to?" And there was no answer. I like to hold people's hand through the process and give them an opportunity each every 2 weeks to talk to me and say, okay, what do we do next? Okay, here are three more things. What do we do? And then all of a sudden at the end, you're like, wait a minute, my life has completely shifted and changed. And I'm in a space of, health and wholeness. So if you don't have your health, all of these goals, dreams, and whatever you want to do, and I say, being able to live a long and prosperous life here on this earth with peace and waking up each morning without things hurting is a beautiful space to live in. And so that's what I want to help people get to.
Good stuff. I was gonna ask you, are there any last words, but it looked like you just dropped the mic right there. So, I mean, if there is anything else you want to share, go right ahead. But also, where can our listeners connect with you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I took a hiatus from doing a weekly show called Share the Joy, and that will be picked back up in May. So I'm excited about that. And so you can find me on YouTube, all the past episodes, and trust me, there are like 152 of them. So you have plenty of time to catch up on. And I just kind of drop. I try to do within. Some of them are 15 minutes, but most of the time, 10 minutes or less. I try to give you the ins and outs of a health issue or something that you need to know about, and just kind of give you that rundown there. You can also find me on YouTube, excuse me, on Instagram, which is Do All Things with Joy, on Facebook, Do All Things with Joy. I have a website, which is Do All Things with Joy. So everything is pretty much, that tag. And then I have a book called Share the Joy, 52 Weeks to Abundant Health. And I also love to work with people one-on-one and also do group coaching through a program called Momentum Not Motion, and Gut Check 21, which is my signature program that I do for people for their health and wellness.
Wow, good stuff. Well, you're already blessing a lot of people, and I know you're gonna free a lot of people, even that listen to this podcast. So thank you so much for the value that you brought, and we're just excited because we're gonna live better and be better.
Yes, definitely.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you guys for listening. Definitely feel free to take a screenshot of this episode, tag me in it on Instagram or Facebook or wherever you find me on social media. I would love to give you a shout out. Hey, you might even get a prize, who knows, but excited that you had a chance to take a listen. I hope you got a lot of value, and definitely feel free to give us 5 stars as well as a review. Show us some love, and we appreciate you. God bless you all, and see you all over the top.